Today on the podcast, the question we're going to tackle is what do you need when working on your first business, on your first startup? Do you need an investor or do you need someone who is willing to give you something in exchange for using your product? The reason why we're looking at this today is because it was a question that was asked by a Nigerian founder who was speaking at a startup event in Lagos let me not mention the place. Lagos in 2025, and the video was sent to me, and I have been making a series of commentaries on the video to explore a couple of things that he got right from a sales and business development perspective and things that he could have said better. So today, I'm continuing with the commentary. Now, apologies for the noise in the background because today is a Sunday, and for you regular listeners, you know that my kids are in catechism classes, so I'm in the parking lot outside in church, and then at the building next door, they're building some sort of mall or something. So there's lots of construction noise going on, and then there are teachers teaching catechumens, and children answering questions, and people who have finished their classes, people running all over the place. So you're going to hear all that noise bleeding in through the microphones. Now, if you love these sorts of things, I mean, not the Catholic side of me, but me and my fascination with sales and marketing and business, then subscribe to the podcast on Spotify, on Apple, iTunes, on YouTube, or any player of your choice, because this is what I do over here on the podcast, and I do that every other day, and I've been doing it unfailingly. I don't think I've missed. Okay, well, I've missed a few weeks, but sure, I've been doing this for the last 5 years. Now, my name is Tavishima Ayede. I'm the host of the podcast. If you would love to connect with me, because you have questions, you have comments, you have queries, or you'd like us to work in a collaboration together, that's not a problem. Anything that's going to bring in money, I am down, especially since it's Christmas period. So my eye on the tier. I'm looking for Naira any which way. So you can call, send me a text message or a WhatsApp message on 08064662140. All right, now back to the question. What do you need when working on your first startup? Do you need an investor or do you need someone who is willing to give you something in exchange for using your product? So like I said, a Niger Tech Bro at a startup event in Lagos. Now, this was the answer that he gave to the question, and let me hold on. Let me scroll through my device, because I want to quote the guy directly. And this is what the guy said, and I quote, I believe the first thing you need, even though some people believe the first thing you need is an investor, I believe that the first thing you need is somebody who you are able to convince you to pay some money or some value or something in exchange for using your product. Now, let me repeat what the guy said. The guy on stage at the podium told other would be Nigerian entrepreneurs and other would be Nigerians who are about to start a business. And I'm glad he said this because I say these things to tech people, but sometimes, it'll be as if, since me, I'm not a tech person, it'll be as if, I'm saying what I don't know. So this is what the guy said. If you don't believe me, just as in, it's one of your brothers. The guy has built a startup. The guy has cash out, and the guy is, he has a reputation for being a boss in the industry. And this is what your boss said, for those of you who are in the tech space. He said, and I quote, I believe the first thing you need, even though some people believe the first thing they need is an investor, I believe that the first thing you need is someone who you are able to convince to pay you some money or some value or something in exchange for using your product. I agree with your guy. I agree with him. The first thing you need is not necessarily an investor, at least for most of you. It's an interesting argument. But the thing is, even though he said his point, he moved on and started talking about some other things, but he didn't say why. And so today I'm going to explain the dynamic just in case there is somebody who's about to start business. You're about to be a startup founder. You're about to become a tech bro yourself. You're about to do a fintech. You're about to do a something. And you don't understand why. There's some people saying you don't need an investor first. And of course, in your mind, you're wondering, Zuckerberg, Didn't Zuckerberg have investors? And then you call all of them. Didn't these people have investors? We're not saying you won't have investors. We're just saying it's not necessarily the first thing that you need. So let's explore some of the reasons why. Now, when you're starting a business, when you're starting a startup, there are some main questions that you need to answer. One of them is, how am I going to get money to fund this thing? Do I need investors? Abi, should I bootstrap? That is the first question that you'll be asking yourself. Where will I get this money? If I have savings, I'll drop my savings. That's what some people do. Some people, even if they have savings, they'll say, let me go and look for an investor. Let me de-risk. Let me not carry too much risk on my own head. But Shah, that's the first question you're asking yourself, most people. How will I get money to fund this thing? Investors or bootstrapping? Then, the second question that you ask yourself is, do people even like this thing self? Will this thing be a hit? Will there be any demand? And would I be able to sell this thing at the right price? Because people don't just bootstrap for the sake of bootstrapping. They are hoping that this thing will be big and this thing will blow so that they will live large and live well. People don't just collect investors' money for the sake of collecting investors' money. They are doing it because they hope that this thing will be a hit. This thing will blow. This thing will go blah, so that they will live large and they will live well. Apart from people, that's except for people who are fraudsters. Because there's some people who run around, they say, this is my idea. They collect investor money, and then before you know it, they're not answering phone call again. And then where is this guy? Where is this guy? Next thing you hear, oh, maybe he's in Canada. The guy don't miss. He has collected investor money, and the guy has disappeared. I've heard, unfortunately, that a few people have done that kind of behavior. I've seen some people complaining, complaining on LinkedIn that somebody came and raised plenty of rounds, and the person formed small activity, and then next thing the person was back in the US. So investor money now, what happened? That's it. Money don't miss. So if you're not a fraudster, those are two questions they're asking yourself. How will I get money to fund this thing? Investors or bootstrapping? And then, will people like this thing? Will it be a hit? Will it be big? Will there be any demand? And can we get this thing going at the right price that will make sense for me and also to make sense to my investors so that them too, they will recoup? Now, if the answer to the question for you is bootstrapping, then you need people to exchange money with you so that you can get the liquidity that you need. It is from selling 1 or 2 units, 3 or 4, 5 or 6, however many in the early days. You now take the profit on top. You now take that profit, and that's what you use to plow back to grow the business. So if your answer is bootstrapping, you can see that in the beginning, you need someone to exchange money for your product or your service so you can get the funding that you need to grow this thing. And then in this case, it's a 2-for-1 because them giving you money is a vote of confidence. It is proof that people like this thing because most people are not going to give you money for your product or your service unless they believe that this thing works or they believe that this thing has value. Okay, well, except for Momsy and Popsy. Momsy might just buy because, it's my son, let me help him. Popsy might also buy because it's my son, let me help him. But once you leave Momsy, Popsy, your cousins, your brothers, your uncles, and your aunties, other people are dropping money because they think this thing, it might work, or this thing, there's value there. Now, for those of you on the African continent, and I'm only talking to people on the African continent now, because from what I hear, I don't know it to be true firsthand, but from what I hear, the dynamic on the African continent is different from what's going on in Western economic climes. But like I said, this is them say, them say. This is what I have heard. So, one moment. Okay, sorry about that. I had to pause the recording. I had to pause the recording a little bit because the sacristan was walking by. So I said, let me just hail the guy. Where was I? Okay, for those of you who are not Catholic, the sacristan is the person who person takes care of the sacristy. The sacristy is the place where the priests and other people who are going to be celebrating at mass. The place where everybody gets ready. They go, the vestments are there. They dress up. Say prayers, prepare, and then they make a procession to the altar. That's for those of you who are wondering, which one be Sir Christian again? So, yeah, so that's the guy I was hailing. What was I now? So I was telling you now that what I'm going to say next now is not something that I have verified for myself because I'm not in that space. But I hear that the dynamic on the African continent is different from US, different from UK. So if you are in Niger or Ghana or South Africa, from what I've heard, and the answer to your question is what I need first is investors, then what you need is some sort of proof of concept. You need some proof that this thing is working. You need some proof that this thing is moving. You need some proof that there is traction. You need some proof that this thing is can work. Because from the gist I have heard, please go and verify, don't quote me. From the gist I have heard, it sounds like African investors don't like to drop money when all you have is a wonderful PowerPoint presentation or you say you have a groundbreaking idea alone. So that's the gist I've heard. That in America and in the UK, places in the place, those parts of the world, you can come and say, I have a revolutionary, groundbreaking idea, and then you sketch it, you give them nice presentation, and you start collecting money. You don't raise funds like that. But the gist I've heard that in Nigeria, people, they say, wonderful idea. But then they want to see that this thing is working, that this thing is moving. So in this case, you need people to exchange something of value, give you money or give you time as proof that people like this your idea. That is what will now give the investor confidence to give you some money. But like I said, go and verify first though. This is just gist that I've heard. You know, I'm not a tech founder, so I've never been exposed to these dynamics. It's just the gist that I've been hearing. So, if you're on the African continent, you're South African, you're Nigerian, you're Ghanaian, and you say investor is the first thing that I need, unfortunately, when you get there, you find out that investor is wanting to see, have you sold some units? Have people signed up? What are your daily active users? Maybe your monthly active users, your something. So they want to see that something is moving in the right direction before they start writing checks to you. So the question now becomes, how do you convince people to give you money or exchange something of value? Well, we have spoken about this in previous podcast episodes, so there's no need to go into all this in detail. Or you can go and research, of course, using your favorite AI tool like Gemini or ChatGPT or whatever. But of course, number one is obviously, sell the finished product now. Maybe you have a finished product, go ahead and sell it. If you move a couple of units, investors will say, there's progress here. So for those of you who watch the Dragon's Den, this is the sort of dynamic that you see at play. So Dragon's Den, it's is it American? I mean, is it UK? I can't remember myself. I think it's UK. Deborah Mead and a couple of other people. So that's the dynamic that you see at play. Somebody will come and say, I have this business, we value it at so and so, and I'm looking for £5 million investment for 5% of the company, something like that. Eventually it gets to the point where Deborah Mead and the other people will start asking the person questions. Okay, nice business, this, that. When did you incorporate this thing? I incorporated it in 1999. Okay. Since 1999, how many units have you sold? I have sold so and so. At how much profit margin? They're asking all those questions because the investors, the potential investors on the Dragon's Den, they are trying to do the math in their head. Okay, this guy started 1999, so this business don't day like 20 something years. How many units has he has been selling? Okay, so many thousand. Profit margin is like this, like this. They're trying to figure out how big is this thing. So, sell the finished product to them, and you would have demonstrated that this thing is workable. So, therefore, they can drop money and invest in your idea. Then there's pre-selling. Pre-selling is when the thing is not really on ground yet, but then you collect the order, you collect their money. You now use the money to go and facilitate the transaction. So the first time I spoke about this over on my radio show, the very next person who reached out, she said that is how she has been doing her business. That she doesn't hold the inventory, she doesn't hold the stock, but she collects money from people. She now uses the money to buy from other people, and then she delivers, and then she puts her own margin on top. She does pre-selling or pre-orders or whatever you call it. So that's also one way that people can validate that, look, this thing is moving. Then there's also the idea of creating an MVP, which is the minimum viable product, which is the smallest version of your product or your idea that you can release into the market so that people can see it, can taste it, can touch it, can smell it, can try it, can like it, can abuse it, can reject it. But sure, there's something concrete that people are interacting with. And this can also be a way that you be able to show your investors that, you know what, this thing get leg, like the thing is moving. Then I think this guy, what's his name? 4 Hour Week. What's his name? What's his name again? The guy that wrote the 4 Hour Week. His face is in my mind now. I've just forgotten his name. Ah, anyway, Google 4 Hour Week. You see the guy. So he has spoken in the past about how he used landing pages to validate his own business ideas. So basically, set up a landing page to say if you're interested in this, pay £5, pay $5, pay whatever. Then people pay, and he now uses that as a sign to show that, oh, people are actually interested. So I can't remember how he did it in his own case, but some other people who they collect the money and then they now reach out to the person to say, "Ah, thank you very much for placing the order. Thank you very much for your faith. Truth of matter is, the thing never did ground yet, but these are the options. Should I return your money to you, or are you willing to hang on in another 1 month, 2 months? The thing will be ready. We'll now deliver it to you. I can't remember exactly how he in particular, this guy who did the 4 hour work week, I can't remember the exact way that he used the landing page to validate his own idea. But shall people do things like this also to show that your product, your service, your idea, that the thing is worthy of investing in? Then there's also crowdfunding. Now, I haven't done the research yet. Let me be honest and tell you guys. I was supposed to have done the research to see how that's to check SEC rules. That is the Securities and Exchange Commission of Nigeria, to check their rules to see how crowdfunding is applicable in Nigeria. So whether it's applicable in Nigeria, how it applies in Nigeria, but at least in America, crowdfunding is one way that people have used to show traction for their ideas. So if an investor sees that, oh, you've been doing crowdfunding, people don't they drop bar, you've moved a couple of units, they now know that, okay, no problem, I can invest in this thing. So like I said, there are plenty other ideas that have been explored in previous podcast episodes. And now with the benefit of AI, all you have to do is just go into your favorite AI tool, like Google Gemini, for instance. That's my favorite one. Not because it's the best, but just because it's already on my phone and it's free. So why should I go and pay for something else? So you can go into your tool and say, I'm a Nigerian in the startup space. I'm thinking of doing a startup like this, like this, like that. I would like to attract investors. But before I look for investors, I want to be able to show that there is traction for my business idea. So, what are the ways that I can show traction for my idea? Something like that. And then you hit send. And apart from some of these things that I've mentioned, it's going to give you a bunch of other interesting stuff. So, all you do now is just print out that list. So, let's say it gives you a list of 10. Print out those lists and start from number one and start working your way down. You try. And yeah, that's it. But bottom line, summary, what I'm saying today is, for those tech founders who stand up on stage in Lagos or in Abuja or in Port Harcourt or in Kano or wherever and tell other would-be entrepreneurs that, look, you're starting business, the first thing you need is not really an investor, but you need people to give you money first, or you need people to give something of value first before you start looking for investors. Summary, what I'm saying is, whenever people say that, I say, look, I agree wholeheartedly, 100%, at least as of today. Who knows? Maybe in another 4 or 5 years, things might change. But for now, it's looking like you need to prove that this idea is workable first. And the easiest way to prove, honestly, is that somebody has paid you money for the thing before. I remember when I was starting off as a young wedding photographer. Before I started, Or rather, before I collected my first 50K, that's how much I charged for the first wedding. People would tell me all sorts of things like, man, you're good, you're talented, I have faith in you, this is this, that. People can say all kinds of things. But the time it became real was when somebody transferred 50K into my account. I was like, oh, okay. Okay, somebody actually believes in me. But anyway, that's a story for another day. And I'm sure for those of you who've been listening to the podcast for a while, you're already tired of me talking about my first 50K. So let me just let that one go. So, excuse me. So that's it. And that is all. Thank you very much for listening. Remember, if you'd love to connect, then you can call, send me a text message or a WhatsApp message on 080-6466-2140. Thank you very much for your time and attention. I'll catch you all some other time.